Now, if people would adopt these sales concepts, they could double, triple, quadruple the income that they're making. But it's going to be tough because a lot of these are going to challenge the status quo. They're going to go against conventional sales methodology. And so you have to have an open mind if you're going to listen to this podcast to really think about this before you judge it, because all these concepts have been tested and they have helped me over the last 20 years. And it's helped thousands and thousands and thousands of really, really advanced salespeople. But when you first hear some of these, if you're new to sales, it might take you a minute to really get it. So let's jump into number one, which is nothing is as it seems. So what does this mean? This means that prospects, what prospects often say to you is not what they really mean. And as a result, salespeople have happy ears. They live in this world of mutual mystification, is that prospects say that they're interested and that salesperson gets all excited, and they get off the phone. I got one. They're ringing the bell, blah, 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 blah. What the prospect really meant to say was, as soon as you hang up this phone, I'm going to block the number. I'm never going to answer it again. But the prospect didn't, or the salesperson rather, didn't hear that because it's not what they wanted to hear. And so prospects don't owe us anything. They often lie to get rid of you. And so they will tell a salesperson they're interested to get rid of the salesperson,
That's right. I think prospects, whether they consciously or doing this consciously or not, they have a script, and oftentimes it's better than your script, right?
That's right.
And they know what triggers and gets rid of you and does this and does that. So I think the root of it is, to your point, it's the emotion. It's being emotional. It's not having that process of what to do next. And that's why they get those happy years. That's why they fall into the trap.
Yeah. I mean, the best way to get rid of a salesperson is tell them you're interested.
That's right.
It's the best way to get them out of your house, to get off the phone. And so the point of this is to get to the truth, is to get to yes or no with no bias towards either one. And you have to be very comfortable hearing no. You have to be very comfortable with rejection to help prospects feel comfortable in telling you the truth. But you train the prospect as to what they're going to, whether or not they are going to tell you the truth or not, based on your neediness to make a sale. So we're going to talk a lot about this in today's podcast, that the way in which you make people feel, a prospect feel, whether they could feel that bias that you're trying to make the sale or you're trying to close me, will determine the level of guard that the prospect puts up and whether or not you're going to get the truth from them.
That's right. We tell people all the time, I have 100% close rate, right? And people are like, no way you have 100%. Yeah, when I go to a listing point, I have 100% close rate. And it's to your point. Like, we want to get clear on, at the end of this, it's either yes or no. And I think the trap too that we fall into is, I'm going to the prospect's home. I'm on their turf. They're in charge. It's like all this, we'll get into this deeper, but mother may I stuff. And we need to have our plan. We need to go in there with clear rules that the prospect equally needs to follow.
And if you're watching this video right now and you're not earning a minimum of $10,000 a month every month, there's a link in the description. You can get instant access to my free 6-figure listing agent course, where I show you step by step how to scale your income as a listing agent working 4 to 5 days a week. Just click the link in the description to get started. That's right. And this also goes the other way. Nothing is as it seems also can go the other way, which I mean, what I mean by that is this, is that I can't tell you how many prospects have told me, I am never going to do business with you. I'm never going to list my house with a realtor, et cetera, et cetera. And when I get in front of them in person, face to face, everything changes. Well, why is that happening? Well, because it's reflex. It's their reflex resistance that often shows up on a prospecting call, because they're protecting themselves, right? And what people say over the phone versus how they are in person, it's very different. It's like the person who talks trash on my YouTube videos every single time I upload one.
Yeah.
The keyboard warrior, right?
That's right.
Really tough behind their keyboard and spewing hate.
Yep.
And then, I've called some of these people on the phone. I've had people say, all right, find me this person. And I call them on the phone and oh my gosh, are they so different? Oh, I didn't really. Yeah. Nothing is as it seems. The same thing with prospects is that just because prospects out of reflex tell you, no, I'm not interested, or perhaps, we already have a service provider. It's a reflex to try again, get away from you, right? And so often what can happen is if you don't take that literally and you don't get defensive, you don't get argumentative, but you stay in the pocket, you continue to ask questions, what you often find is that, and we've said it for years, that a face-to-face appointment changes everything. Changes everything. That when you get in front of the prospect and they feel comfortable with you, oh boy, does the story change.
Mm-hmm. How many times do people say, Brandon, if you can just help me get in front of more people, I can take it from there. I can do it. And that's what they're alluding to. You can make up for your lack of skills because on the phone, all you have is your voice. You can't influence somebody by, gestures, smiling at them, making them feel a different way. That's all you have. And so we can lean on other skills when we get in person and that you can't on the phone. And I think that's what people are getting at.
Yeah. So let's get into concept number 2, which is no pain, no sale. So again, this might seem simple, seem like common sense, but common sense is not common practice. And that is that people are constantly trying to convince and persuade and sell to people that don't have a problem to be solved. I mean, sales is very simple. It's helping people discover a problem or a pain point that they have, and then trying to help them discover whether or not it makes sense to fix it. AKA part ways with money to fix their problem. And so if the person doesn't have a problem and they don't have pain, then the likelihood of them parting ways with their credit card or buying something to fix the problem is very, very low. And most salespeople spend all their time chasing prospects with little motivation, little pain, no problems. And then they wonder why they can't make any sales. It's like trying to sell the cure to somebody's strep throat when they have no strep throat.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And that's what most salespeople do.
Yeah. And Brandon, what's the objection to handle
That's
the person
right.
that doesn't have strep throat and I need to sell them this thing?
Great point. And there is no objection handler for that because there's no pain. There is no sale to be had. Because if you can't solve somebody's problem, which is why people hate salespeople in the first place, which is why most salespeople are afraid to call themselves a salesperson. They don't even want to admit it. They're in sales and then their family member says, well, what do you do for a living? And they say, I'm an account rep. You don't like to call yourself a salesperson because you try to sell things to people that they don't need.
That's right.
You're trying to sell things to people that don't have a problem to be solved. So that concept should be really simple. Let's go on to concept number 3, is that people do things for their reasons, not your reasons. And man, oh man, is this a problem. This is a problem for salespeople because they think that if they can say the right thing, if they can present the right feature or the right benefit, that the person will buy their product or their service. Well, prospects nobody does anything because you tell them to do it. They do things for their own reasons and for their own purpose, which as a result, a great salesperson doesn't try to convince. A great salesperson is really good at helping people convince themselves. Oh, how do I do that? It's called self-persuasion.
That's right.
Try to talk someone into something, good luck. And that's been what most people think sales is. They think sales, I'm not even kidding you, they think sales is talking someone into something. And that's why no one is a very good salesperson. That's why they find selling to be so difficult, because they think the thing that they're trying to do is the very reason why it doesn't work.
Yeah, we get into conversations and try and convince, right? We don't really know what's going on. It's the prospect that just says, all right, Brandon, go ahead. What you got? Go ahead. Give me what you got. It's like, well, Brandon, I don't know if I have anything yet.
Yeah.
Like, you tell me, why am I here?
Yeah.
Right? And trying to get into a real conversation versus allowing that prospect to make you pitch them, right?
Yeah. And people take the bait all the time. You know, it's the prospect who says, well, why should I hire you? And most amateur salespeople take the bait and they get into pitch mode. Well, you know, we've got a AAA better rating with the Better Business Bureau, and we've got 16 reviews, and we've been in business for 25 years. See, that just doesn't work. These are all your reasons. You're trying to convince the person. When the truth is, when the reality is, you don't know if that person should do business with you, because you don't know if you have a problem that you don't know if they have a problem that you can solve. And so the right response to that, the real response to that, for the person who has some emotional maturity is, Mr. Prospect, I'll be upfront, I don't know that you should. I mean, this is the only way to build actual trust and rapport. And we'll talk more about this later in the podcast, but there's so many things happening between salesperson and prospect psychologically that the salesperson who attempts to pitch is doing a lot of harm, you know, because think about yourself. You know, when you're on the other side of a sales pitch, how do you feel? You know, and most of the time, bad salespeople are eliciting psychological reactance. They're putting prospects in a position to resist them more instead of, this is the whole push-pull technique, which I don't know if we'll have time to get into today or not. But the point is that if you think sales is convincing people to do things for your reasons, you're not going to make very much money. And so great salespeople do a great job of asking questions in a way that would solicit the person to verbalize and discover for themselves their own reasons for doing things or not doing things. This is the foundation of sales, is to ask questions to get prospects to verbalize for themselves their own reasons to take action, their own reasons to not take action. Really simple. All right, let's go to point number 4, which is going for no is actually easier than going for yes. So when we look at traditional sales methodologies, scripts, tactics, strategies, etc., most of them are built on trying to get prospects to say yes. I mean, there's even so much so, there's books, written about this, getting to yes and, asking these stupid, I'll never forget this, but I saw somewhere, get them to say yes 5 times. You know what I mean? Like these little things. Yeah. And it's bad advice trying to manipulate people. And so again, we're trying to get to the truth. And so when we're trying to get to the truth and we're trying to fight reflex resistance, if somebody has something, they will fight for it. And so instead of trying to ask somebody, hey, did you see the new iPhone? Are you interested in it? Mm-hmm. Even if the person was, a question that's designed to elicit a yes often gets a no because it's reflex. The same way people respond when they go into a department store and say, hey, can I help you find something? And what do you say every time? You respond with, nope, I'm just looking. I don't believe that. I don't believe that you are so bored that you decided to leave the comfort of your own home, go to fight traffic, go to fight all this, brain damage, to go to the department store because you were bored. No. You went there for a specific reason to purchase something specific. But out of reflex, you tell the clerk, the cashier, no, I'm just looking. And then just 2 minutes later, you have your credit card pulled out and you're swiping that thing. How can those two things be true? That's because yes-oriented questions most of the time lead to no. And so if we can replace yes orientation with no orientation, what you'll find is that you get more yeses.
That's right.
We always say that yes lives in the land of where? No. That's where it lives. And so not only is it going to help you get more yeses, but it help you get to the truth.
That's right. And that's all we're trying to do. And if we can get to the truth, we can make them feel comfortable by getting to say words that they want to say anyway.
That's right.
Then we can truly uncover the truth and serve them, help them.
Yeah. And to give an example of this so that people that are maybe newer to sales can really grasp what we're talking about. Instead of asking a question like this, and I'll give a great example. In our world of real estate sales, a new realtor might ask a prospect to say, you know what, we do a lot to market your home, and I'd love to show it to you. Would you be open to sitting down with me for 20 or 30 minutes? That's a yes-oriented question. That question is designed to get the prospect to say, sure, yeah, come on over. We would invert that. And we would say something like, well, Mr. Prospect, I kind of get the feeling that even if I was to show you a plan and you genuinely believed it would work to sell your home, I'm assuming you probably already have a realtor in mind that you'd end up using. Am I right?
No, I don't.
Yeah, we get them to purposefully say no. So this is the difference between yes and no orientation. And so that's a whole nother episode on the tactical part of it. But just so people can understand, okay, that's the concept they're referring to. So let's get to concept number 5, which is to speak against your own interest. Now, for any new salesperson, they don't understand perceived bias yet. They don't get it. They probably never heard of that before. They haven't studied, human psychology, which is what all sales is. I heard somebody literally make a comment on one of our YouTube videos that said something along the lines of, why are you talking about such deep psychology? This is sales. And I said, wait a minute. Isn't sales the process of talking to humans? And isn't the study of psychology the study of how humans make decisions? Well, I mean, I don't know how you could argue that they're different. Anyway, speaking against your own interest has to do with lowering perceived bias. Now, let me explain what's going on here. So in a selling situation, the prospect has what we call perceived bias, or the salesperson does rather. And that is when the salesperson's speaking, they're speaking in ways that are for their benefit. And every prospect knows it. They're biased towards their product or their sale or their service or doing business with them. And as a result, how does the prospect feel?
Well, just like your agent thing, if you go back to, are you ready to hire me as your agent today? There you go. There's the prime example.
That's right.
Versus your no-oriented question, which takes the pressure off of you.
That's right. Because when you communicate like that's a good example. When you ask a prospect, can I just meet with you to show you? It comes across very salesy. That you're literally asking me, can I come over and convince you?
That's right.
And you just elicit reflex resistance. That's all that's going to happen. And so speaking against your interest is how you actually build real trust. To explain to prospects that you're not for everyone. To explain to prospects that there are downsides to your product or your service is the fastest way to build trust and rapport. And the reason why most prospects don't trust salespeople is because the way they communicate their product or service is that it has no downside. It's perfect. And it's like, well, of course you're saying that. You're just trying to make a sale. That's right. The perceived bias that we're talking about. And so the more experienced salesperson, the salesperson who is detached from the outcome, the salesperson who is only interested in the truth, the salesperson who's not worried about whether or not the prospect buys, the salesperson who's worried about serving, not selling, can speak the truth. And sometimes the truth goes against your interest. And so when the prospect says, why should I hire you? And you respond with, well, to shoot you straight, I don't know that you should. I mean, I'll be upfront. I'm not the realtor for everybody.
Yeah.
That's the reality. The prospect's kind of caught off guard. It's a pattern interrupt where they're so used to all these mules just vomiting all the reasons why they think they should do business with them. And then the person says, okay, great, I'll think about it. Let me go talk to some other mules.
That's right.
And they all say the same crap. It just sounds so contrived and salesy and it's filled with BS. And so the more experienced, the more mature salesperson can speak the truth and speak against their interest because they're not attached to the outcome.
That's right. You go into a conversation with somebody and they ask you a bunch of questions about yourself. It's so funny how you leave that conversation talking about yourself to that person and thinking, man, that was a great guy. I really like that guy.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens when somebody just asks you for what are you going to do? And you just vomit all over them. They leave that thinking, man, that guy just talked about himself the whole time. He didn't ask me about me. He doesn't understand my problem, my pain, any of this stuff. And you leave thinking, man, that went pretty well. I think I got one here, right?
That's so true.
It's just so funny how the one asking the questions, the one talking the most, right? The one asking the questions is in control, and that's where we need to put.
Yeah, let me give you the best analogy of this, and I think the audience that is still here will really get a lot of value from this. So if your friend came to you and said, hey, let's grab a breakfast, and they take you out to breakfast and they say, hey, I got some tough news that I want to talk to you about. And they say, my wife and I are getting a divorce. The natural response is what we're talking about salespeople doing that they can't do when they have their salesperson hat on. How would you respond to your friend? You would say, wait, what? Are you serious? Have you guys tried to get therapy? I mean, what about the kids? What about the finances, and what about this? And have you thought about this? I mean, have you really thought all this through? The friend, the salesperson, who in this case might be a divorce attorney, says to his friend, well, I'm thinking about getting a divorce. Great. It's going to be $5,000.
I got the paper right here.
I got the paper right here. And so you can see the difference that in natural human communication versus when you are in a selling situation, what it does to yourself. And so it's just a really good reminder to say, wow, that's a great point, that in life, I'm not so quick to convince people. In fact, I spend a lot of my time talking people what seemingly seems to talk them out of something.
Sure.
And what's happening is we're getting the other person to make arguments for their reasons.
That's right.
That's the best analogy that I can give people for them to really say, ooh, that's an aha, I got it. So, all right, let's talk about number 6, having the willingness to walk away. So sales is only hard for people because they want someone to buy. If you remove that, the prospect no longer has power over you. You see, you only dance to their tune because you want their money. And you only behave the way that you behave because you want their money. And that money, if you didn't want the money, if you didn't need the money, they would have no power over you. And so to go into a selling situation, having an equal playing field where it's just not up to you to make this decision whether or not you give me your money. I have to be willing to accept your money.
That's right.
Everything changes.
Yeah.
The whole power dynamic changes when the prospect knows it. When you get into a selling situation and you lay out the fact that you're perfectly fine if they decide not to do business with you today, that's not a problem. In fact, that's perfectly fine. All the walls will come down on the prospect side. You will be able to break through and have such great interactions with your prospects if you can make it abundantly clear that, listen, I want to do business with you, but I don't need to do business with you. And so we both, through this discussion, will decide if working together makes any sense. I have some questions for you. You have some questions for me. And through a adult, mature conversation, together collectively, we'll decide if moving forward makes sense or not. It's not just up to you.
It's an easy analogy we go back to is the doctor-patient relationship.
That's right.
That's what's happening here. You go into a conversation with a doctor, he asks you some questions, he fact finds, he figures out what's going on, and then he diagnoses it, and then he might prescribe something. But if you say, I don't want to do that, he's not like flipping his script and being like,
care.
Brandon, wait, hold on a second. You like, let's do that. Like, they don't try to convince you at all. They're just like, great, next, right?
They don't care.
They're confident in their process, their education, and their prescription a lot of times. And so that's what I think we lose is maybe that's why agents can't speak against their own interest and be willing to walk away is because they don't have confidence for what they stand for. Like a doctor is like, man, look, I'm very confident in my education, my practice, what I believe and what I'm prescribing. And so they're willing, and they don't care if you walk away or if they walk away.
Yeah. Well, they're not attached to the outcome.
That's it.
Which we'll talk about later too. But like the only way that you have the willingness to walk away, and the reason why most salespeople don't, is because they need money. And the money has all the power over them. They'll do anything for the money. I mean, especially realtors. I mean, if that's why we call it commission breath. It's like, you need to leave your wedding to come show me this house. They'll leave the wedding. If it means missing their kid's birthday, the birth of their child, they will miss the birth of their child if they think they can get a commission check. And so they have zero willingness to walk away. And then they wonder why clients treat them like crap.
Yeah.
It's because you're a commodity.
Yeah.
You'll do anything I say to do. Dance, do some jumping jacks. I'm going to pay you. See this money? You want this money? Do some push-ups. Give me a foot rub.
Clients are a lot like children. Like I've got 3 2-year-olds right now, right? So they're constantly testing the boundary.
No remorse.
What is the boundary? And your clients are the same way. They don't know that they can't call you at this time. They have a problem, they're going to call you. You didn't tell them that they couldn't. So you can't be mad at them, right? So they're testing a boundary. And if you answer the phone, they're going, great, well, I can do that again and again. And
here's the thing to your point earlier, which I think was a great point, is the great service provider. Again, we're giving some analogies with inside of the real estate space. That's the world we live in. If you know that what you do works because you've sold a lot of homes and you know exactly the type of result that you produce, then you should be interviewing agents because you don't need to convince them that your thing works.
Yeah.
You know your thing works. And so you're going there to interview them to say, do I want to put you through my process that I know works? The prospect is the commodity. I know my stuff works. Yeah. There's only one of me. You ain't going to get another one of me. I can get a whole bunch of you. I can prospect all day long and set listing appointment after listing appointment after listing appointment. I can get more of you. You can't get more of me. And I know my stuff works, and I know the other realtors are a disaster.
Yeah.
So convince me why I should have you as a client. Right? That's my mindset. Now, that's not the way I do it, and certainly you do it in a nurturing and more tactfully way, but that's my mindset.
But it's certainly the reason you don't waver from your process. Like, I do this every day. Why am I going to take your advice on how to sell your home?
Exactly right. Yeah. You need to convince me.
That's right.
Anyway, all right. So let's go to point number 7, is that you can't lose something you don't have. So I ask salespeople and real estate agents all the time this one question, and that is, if a prospect was never going to do business with you ever, when would you want to know that? And they all answer the same way. I would want to know right now. To which I always respond, I don't believe you. Why don't I believe you? Because I listened to all your calls and you are afraid to qualify. You are afraid to disqualify. You're afraid to ask questions to get to the truth because you don't want to know. You're afraid that if you say to somebody, listen, I'm assuming that regardless of what it would be that I could do to help you get your home sold, that you probably already have a great agent. Am I right? You don't want to say things like that because you're afraid they're going to say, yep, I do. And guess what you have to do more of? Prospect. And you don't want to prospect. So that's why people are stuck on the hamster wheel, chasing every Tom, Dick, and Harry, chasing every dead-end lead because their unwillingness to hear the truth. And so they're worried about losing something that they never had in the beginning. So they play the chase game their whole career, and they get ghosted, and people don't pick up their calls, and no one responds, and they say, why? Because of how we started this conversation, because of your happy ears. Yep. You heard one thing. The prospect was communicating something different. You didn't want to ask the real questions because you didn't want to hear the truth.
And the reason you're so willing, or you're afraid you can't lose something you don't have. The reason that's happening and the reason that you don't set yourself apart is because you do fall into the trap of trying to act and mold yourself to them and do whatever they say. And that's the reason that you don't stand out. And it's the reason that you don't get it anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Which brings us into point number 8, which is what you charge is a reflection of the results you produce. This is what you charge is a signal to the market. So let me explain. So if you look at any high-end restaurant or high-end car, if you think about that, right? What is the perception? How is that restaurant or that vehicle perceived? You know, if you think about, okay, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse versus Longhorn, you know, and you just look at the menu, just look at the prices. What do you
Outback
assume?
Steakhouse, yeah.
What do you assume?
It's better.
It's better.
Yeah.
You just assume it's better without even having to taste the steak. You don't even have to taste the steak to assume it's better. Well, this is the same thing in sales. Realtors have such a difficult time with this. I mean, they really, really, really don't get this at all. And they think that and they're contributing to this consumer sentiment that all realtors are the same. You see, when they discount their commission and they think they're doing somebody a favor, what they are signaling to the consumer is that all realtors are the same. We all do the exact same thing. And so therefore, you just have to find the one who's willing to do it for the least amount of money. Where we know, this is the greatest quote from Warren Buffett, price is what you pay, value is what you get. And so what is the reality of that is that all realtors are not the same. Is that if you look at all realtors' list to sold price ratio, which is the only thing that matters, the amount of money they sell their listings for, that's what the consumer is actually purchasing. They're all different. In other words, an agent who charges, I'll just use simple math, $100 to sell your house, but as a result, gets you 80% of your asking price versus an agent who charges you $10,000, who gets you 110% of the asking price. Price is what you pay, value is what you get. Which one was better for the seller? And so I always, not only is what you charge a perception of the results you produce, but you should be proud to not be the cheapest. You should be proud to charge a premium because it's better for the client. The more you charge, the more you pay attention to that client. The more you want to produce, the more time you give them, the more resources you'll give them, the more of everything because you want to provide a great experience. And then when you discount something and you charge somebody very, very little, it's like you don't care.
That's right.
You don't care.
That's right. Yeah. If you took something really serious and then related to the law practice, the value that they get, it's directly connected. That's why they charge by the hour.
That's right.
Right. And if you're wrongly convicted and you're headed to jail for the rest of your life, how are you going to approach that? What type of experience would you want? What would you sign up for? Do you care how much it costs, or do you just care about the result?
That's right. That's right. And so too many salespeople make it about the price and not about the value, and they're fighting and they're losing the wrong battle. All right, so number 9, detaching from the outcome. This is a big one. This could be an 1.5 hour long podcast by itself. But there are 2 parts to detaching from the outcome. Everyone has heard it. No one knows what it means. The easiest part of this for people to understand is that detaching from the outcome means that you are going to do the activities without worrying about the results. That's the easiest part of this philosophy to understand, that, listen, I'm just going to do the reps. I'm not going to worry about losing the weight. I'm going to follow the diet without worrying about my waist. I'm going to make the calls without worrying about setting appointments. That's just a small part of detaching from the outcome. The bigger part of detaching from the outcome is sort of what we've been talking about, is that because you're not attached to the prospect in this context buying, it's you ask the right questions. You tell the sellers, you tell prospects the truth. You tell the seller what their home is actually worth, not what they want to think it's worth, because you're not attached to them listing the home with you. You tell them that their home is in the condition that it's in, not the condition that you want it to. You tell people the truth rather than telling what they want to hear. It's because you're not attached to them buying. This is what I've said for years and years and years, is that I would much rather lose a client's business based on the truth than win a client based on BS. To me, that's detaching from the outcome. It means, no, I owe this person the reality, the truth. It's up to them to accept the reality or not. I am not going to win clients based on bamboozling them to make things seem better than they are. I'm detached from that, because what I don't want to have happen is bring on a client and then have to, BS my way around some broken promises, my overpromise, and now I have to underdeliver. I'm not going to do that to myself. And so to me, I'm going to ask the challenging questions. I am going to challenge the prospect. I am going to look for alternative ways for them to accomplish their goal without buying from me. Because I'm not attached to the outcome, and I'm going to make sure that if we do this, it's for the right reasons, that you weren't pressured into it, nor was I pressured into it, that we do it for the right reason. To me, that's detaching from the outcome.
I think we go into this and we have to be really clear on, man, if I have the mindset that this is my only transaction, it's going to be broadcast to everyone. What would I say? How would I guarantee that I sell this home, right? And I think that's part of this, like being so truthful, giving them the truth so that I can guarantee I can sell this home. And this is it, my whole career hangs on this. That's kind of the mindset that I believe we have to go into this with.
No doubt. So let's get into number 10, which is to bring up the objections and let the prospects handle them. So every sales training out there, every sales methodology talks about this on the opposite approach. They like all of sales out there traditionally talks about responding to objections.
That's right. And when do you do that?
And yeah, exactly. After the prospect gives you one, right? And you're reacting to it. And so when you react to it, it actually lowers your status with the prospect. And so if the prospect is the one who's proactively bringing up a concern, and now you have to backpedal, you don't look very good. And so you don't look very trustworthy. You don't look like somebody who is a high valued, trusted advisor. You actually look like a schmuck. You look like someone who I can't trust. I tell you, I bring up this concern, and then you give me some type of fancy thing to try to talk your way out of why what I said is not reality. You're the very salesperson that is repelling people. That's right. So rather than that, my belief is that you bring up the concerns before the prospect brings up the concern, because it's the truth. And the truth is there are more reasons why somebody would not do business with you than there are reasons why they would. And so if you're the one who's proactively bringing up all the concerns, well, it signals to the prospect, listen, you didn't even think about this, right? And so it's the fastest way to build trust. I can just hear people, why would you want to bring something? Because I'm only concerned about the truth.
But also you're sitting there and you're like, man, I hope he doesn't ask about the price. I hope. What do you think he's thinking about, right? If you're thinking it, I guarantee they're thinking it.
Yep. I hope they don't ask, about the commission, and it's like, that's the very behavior that repels people, that repels salespeople, or that repels people, that gets them to hate salespeople and gets you to not admit that you are a salesperson.
And it puts you in convince mode.
That's
now
right.
You are convincing, and guess what? They're going to still be of the same opinion.
That's right. That's exactly right. A man convinced
against his will is still of the same opinion still.
That's so good.
Yeah. That's great.
And it's like, you have to be the one to bring up potential concerns, because if not, like, it's just a bomb waiting to go off later. And it's like, you'd be a lot better off disarming all the bombs before they go off versus having a bomb go off and having to deal with the explosion.
That's right. I had a contractor come over and I was asking questions, and my wife was listening in, and she's like, why are you having to ask all these questions? Why are you like, did he not think about that? And he was constantly having to, play catch up to my question. And it just comes across as, you have no idea what you're talking about. Like, why do I have to bring this up?
That's right.
You should bring it up. You're the professional. Why are you asking me my opinion? I'm the prospect. That's why you're here. Otherwise I would do it myself.